Comparison is the thief of joy. So don't compare everyone else on social media to yourself, because everybody's race is different. Schools are looking for different positions based on year, right? Like, you might think you want to go to these two schools and they're your top school, but they've already targeted two other kids in front of you in that class. So don't spend all your time on social media and worrying about who's getting an offer from what, because everybody's race is different and everybody develops at different paces.
Welcome back to the Coaches Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Wyatt Faust. Today's episode is something I'm very passionate about. The education and the recruitment process is something that I think a lot of families don't really understand. They don't know where to turn to answer the questions they have. And there's not a handbook that tells a lot about what to do. There's so much information out there. There's so many recruiting services and websites. There's so many teams that they can join. There's so many levels amongst those teams that they can join. And in a lot of things, there's a lot of gray area. I'm going to tip it off by talking about a couple different big ticket items when it comes to the recruitment process. And we're also going to bring on some great guests from different circuits in the travel basketball world. And we're going to answer some hard-hitting questions that a lot of families have had. So let's tip it off. First of all, you're pouring a lot of money into this process. And I think it's extremely important that your goals align with the team goals when you're considering joining a team. Whether that's in the early stages, when they're in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade up until freshman, sophomore year, I think you need to make sure your goals align with the team goals. Some teams are going to be about development. They're going to be about traveling locally. The local tournaments and the local teams are going to typically be a lot more cost-friendly. You're not going to have to stay in huge cities, travel far distances, get hotels, and pay large entry fees for exposure events where kids don't need exposure. The truth be told, unless you're a top 100 freshman in the country, there's not going to be a ton of recruitment that goes on in your 8th grade year or younger. Most colleges are aware of players that are regional by their freshman year, and the recruitment process will really start picking up their sophomore year and on. So I think it's important as you look at your son or daughter and you're deciding what to choose, what makes sense for your family, what's the team's goals, and do they align with yours? Because something that you may or may not know is that some events are certified and some aren't. College coaches are not allowed to be at events that are not certified. As you pick up a team's travel schedule, you should ask what certified events you'll be attending. But just because an event's certified doesn't mean you're going to be playing on the right courts, on the right teams, in the right events where college coaches will even be at. There are plenty of certified events that don't get many, if any, college coaches. The level of college coaches will be different too based on the event, the team, the court, things like that. In the episode, we talk about some red flags to be aware of, too many promises, people making blanket statements about getting you in front of, quote unquote, the right people. After interviewing a couple parents of young athletes that are coming up into the recruitment process, one question they asked was, does the high school you go to matter at all in your recruitment? And the answer is no. Your high school can help prepare you and develop you for when you get to college. Not all high schools and high school coaches are created equal. Some will have you more prepared than others. But when it comes to recruitment, it's a new day and age, and there's a lot of information. There's a lot of ways for people to get their name out there. And the high school you go to, it doesn't really affect your recruitment at all. So as people are telling you that or trying to get you to transfer to their high school, just be aware that the exposure piece is not going to be determined by the high school you attend. To that end, another question that people had is, does transferring schools affect recruitment? And the answer is no there too. Unless you change high schools 3 or 4 times, you change travel ball teams 3 or 4 times, we completely understand as college coaches that, you know, you're going to do what is best for your child. People make promises that aren't true, and as you come to find that out, you may want to change situations, and we understand that. And I have had a lot of players on a team call and ask if we cared as they were getting ready to. That was great that they called, and we appreciated it, but it wasn't necessary. We don't care, and if we've built a relationship with you and we know you, we understand your situation pretty well. I think one small note to understand is, Twitter is a great place for college coaches to go to find out about your student athlete, Most of them are going to be on Instagram. I get a lot of Instagram DMs, and I'm not that great at Instagram. I probably need to be better, but I think most coaches are very active when it comes to recruiting on Twitter. That's a great place to make sure you have an account. Whether you want your daughter or your son to have their own Twitter account, that's up to you. But I think having a page for them, even if you as a parent run it, is great. And make sure and pin your highlights to the top of your Twitter account. There's a ton of services out there, and they all promise the same thing. I think it's important to understand anytime you're looking at whether it be a ranking service or a big exposure camp or whatever prep hoops event that is going on, those are not going to affect their recruitment. There is good in a lot of those things. As a player, if getting a write-up about you and getting into a local ranking is something that you just think is pretty cool, then by all means do it. If you think it's going to affect or impact your recruitment, it's probably not. There is a difference in official and unofficial visits. Student athletes can't take official visits in women's basketball until January of their junior year. On an official visit, a school will pay for everything. They'll pay for travel to and from the visit. They'll pay for your meals, your housing, all those things while they're on their official visit. And student athletes get unlimited official visits. Colleges, however, may not. There's the official visit number rule changes and it's fluid, so that piece may change, but official visits are also not a tour of the country. If you plan on taking 6, 7 official visits, some schools may back off of you because they think you're just going to be going. By the time it's time to take official visits, you probably should have a firm grasp on 3 to 4 schools that you're actually very serious about attending. Now, when it comes to unofficial visits, you can take as many of those as you want, starting as early as you want. Unofficial visits are a great chance to go and spend some time with the coaches, get to know them on an individual basis, and hardly any coach is going to tell you no or going to say no to an unofficial visit. I would highly recommend you reaching out to those coaches, have your travel coaches reach out to whatever college you're interested in. If you go to game day and you get there early, you can watch a shoot around. You can probably get a tour of the facilities. You can get a behind the scenes access to the pregame, whatever that looks like. But it's just a really great way to get on a school's radar. If they're aware of you and they know about you, they're more likely to go see you in the summer. And that's a great way to start building a relationship with that coaching staff. Emails are not a great tool to get in touch with coaches, especially when they look like they were copy and pasted. If all you changed out was the name, but everything in the email is super vanilla, and it looks like it was copy and pasted, we typically don't pay a lot of attention to those. However, if you send an email and it's very specific and direct to what we're doing, it's got a link to your highlights, and you can show what you've done, and you say some things about the program that are very specific that they can see that, okay, you did your homework, you know that it's a great fit, instead of just saying, hey, I think I'd be a great fit. Well, every email we get says, I think I'd be a great fit. And if that's all it says, it's hard to really know if they even know the style you play or anything about your program. I think one of the hardest waters to navigate are what age and stage people should start doing what in travel basketball. I think I'll leave you with this. If your student athlete is not ready to get recruited, I probably would not pay crazy amounts of money to travel all over the world to get into tournaments just because they're exposure events or there's a marquee name on those teams. Youth development is what's important because they're not going to get recruited until they're freshmen if they're really good, and typically sophomore and junior year. So take that time in the early stages to build their skills, let them play one-on-one, let them play 3-on-3, get a ball in their hands, and make sure they're just developing and growing. I will say, I think the first summer that a young lady gets on a really good team in these big events and they go play people from other places and they can see that, wow, there's some unbelievable players out there, I think they come back from that with a real big time appreciation for what that looks like. I think if they go to an event and go watch a court full of college coaches watching some unbelievable athletes that can truly inspire them in a big way to come back and want to be great. And so I think there's a lot of value in that. So even if the only event that your younger travel team attends is Run for the Roses in Louisville, that's a chance for you to go to a big tournament, play some great competition, but then also make sure and go check out one of those courts and let them get a feel for that and get excited about being special. Those are just some things that come to the top of mind when I'm talking to families and I get emails or texts asking about, is this event good? Should I go to this? Is this just a money grab? And I'd be willing to answer those questions for anybody. I've got a big heart for this. I want to help as many people as I can when it comes to this. So feel free to reach out to me if you ever have any questions about that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you the truth and not just what someone else wants you to hear, and they'll spin things the way they want to spin them for their group and their organization. Today, we're going to be bringing on 3 guests in the travel basketball worlds who each represent one of the 3 major circuits across travel basketball. We will be bringing on Coach Scott Johnson of West Virginia Thunder in the Under Armour circuit, Coach Stephen Pratt of Full Package Athletics in the Adidas circuit, and Coach Greg Logsdon of Missouri Phenom in the Nike EYBL circuit. They each 3 have a great perspective. They have been on this circuits for a really, really long time, and they've coached a ton of athletes that range from every level, Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO, NAIA, you name it, they've coached them. So let's jump right in. Super excited to have Coach Scott Johnson from West Virginia Thunder in the Under Armour circuit join us today. Coach Johnson has been at it for a while and truly has built an empire. Go way back with them from sweaty gyms up in Northern Kentucky and Cincinnati. I had a small team that's called the Shining Stars, and West Virginia Thunder had just got off the ground, and there wasn't very many teams back then, so we ran into each other, seemed like every weekend, and we were both pretty competitive and pretty aggressive. So our teams got into it, we got into it, and it was always a hell of a good time. So, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on with me, man.
Good memories for sure. Back in the day when grassroots was a little more pure. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it was awesome. I wanted to I wanted to bring on a couple people who would tell the truth, who would, we could ask some tough questions that parents really want to know the answers to. I think kids want to know the answers to. And so many people, they either don't know what questions to ask or they don't know where to go for, some truth. And you've never been shy about telling the truth. So, what do you think is your program's primary responsibility to your players?
I think our responsibility to our players is to make sure they get what they deserve. And it sounds simple, but you got to put them on the right team, got to put them in the right spot that get what they deserve. And I think with us is if you're a mid-major player, you need to have 12 mid-major offers. You need to have a wide variety of places to go. So I think that's our main thing for our responsibility is make sure every kid that comes in our program gets what they deserve. And what we feel it's our staff what they deserve, not what mommy and daddy feels like they deserve. So that can differ sometimes, but I go to bed knowing I did right by these kids. If me and our staff feel like, all right, if that kid's going to the Horizon League or to the MAC and that's the level they was, then we did good. Now, if we feel like we have a kid that belongs playing for Don Staley and she's playing for Wyatt Faust, we didn't do our job. Sorry, Wyatt.
No feelings hurt.
So that I think that's our responsibility. Make sure everybody gets what they deserve.
Okay, so what are those conversations like? Because there are tough conversations where parents or players think that, and it doesn't have to be, mid-major to Power 4. I think the 1%ers don't need help. They've got enough that they're not going to have to worry about that. I think the biggest disservice that's done in travel basketball so often is kids landing in the wrong places. And I just wonder who's having those conversations. If you've got a player that's got 5 Division II offers and then at the 11th hour they get 1 Division I offer, are there conversations that are had, or do you just kind of let that ride?
No, I don't let it ride. So usually we have a conversation. I say it doesn't matter what level that I think you are. Doesn't matter what level our staff thinks you are. It matters what the market says you are. It doesn't matter if I think my car outside is worth $150,000. It matters what the blue book says it's worth. So we do the same thing. Like if a kid's got low D1 mid-major offers, and then here comes one Power 4 school that's at the bottom of the conference comes in and tries to swoop them. Is the kid really a Power 4? No, the market says this. Now, I'll say that to the parent one time. Because, a lot of these parents just want to go to the biggest, shiniest football school. You know how it is, man, and that's why we have a portal because of that. I'll say it one time to them, like, hey, this might, and I lived this with my own daughter. When my own daughter was going through a recruiting, my oldest daughter, I knew she was a high major kid. I didn't know she was a super high major kid. So, Notre Dame's coming around. Notre Dame offers her, Muffet, blah, blah, blah. I was like, God, I don't know if she's that good. Gino came around. I was like, okay, that's a common offer. I took it even a step further and broke it down. So I think that I've lived it, and I kind of say that story, and I kind of, and go over them situations. Then I'll go back and say, I had Susie 6 years ago that wanted to go to the 2-14 school in the SEC. See how that worked out for her? But she had a Murray State, a Middle Tennessee State, a James Madison, whoever it be, offer. So we do have them conversations, and parents usually don't listen.
Not the first time around. I think that brings up, you bring up a good point as far as, with parents. They're a part of the process. They're more involved than it ever been. That's great in a lot of ways. What advice do you have if you had, 5 minutes to sit down with a parent of a young athlete that wanted to play college basketball? What would your advice for those parents be, whether it be things that they should not do, things they should do, how you can help and how you can hurt your student as they go, your athlete as they go through this?
Well, I think it's like if your son has a stomach ache, he has a fever, do you diagnose him? Because you're not a doctor. So my point is, when we want something for our children and we're not in that field and that's not our specialty, go find the best person, do research, the best program, the best whoever to help you give advice, and listen to go pick somebody that has the information and use their advice. So that's my advice to parents, just like we do with our own children. My kids are sick. I don't diagnose them because I'm not a doctor. I go find the doctor, and when the doctor says, hey, we need to take their appendix out, I don't say, I think the appendix is good. I don't say that. So I think it's go find somebody that knows what they're doing and then kind of go off of them. And I also think key with parents is let your kids run your own race. I say it all the time at my house. Don't look at your neighbor's grass. It does not matter. Worry about your own yard. My neighbor's grass is high. There's weeds everywhere. So there's all kinds of shit going on in my neighbor's house. I don't care. My yard's mowed. My yard's clean. I don't worry about it. And I try to tell parents the same thing because that's the biggest problem. And then a lot of times they're right. They don't understand why Sally's getting more offers than Josie, and Josie's better right now. Josie probably is better right now. But nobody's recruiting these kids to who's better right now. They want to know how they're going to be in 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, however when they start recruiting. So I think parents don't understand that. But I think if you go to somebody and you have a resource, you have an AAU program director, you have a high school coach, you have a friend in the coaching world, as long as they'll shoot you straight. Now, that's the other problem is you get some of these people and it's like nobody wants to tell the bad truth. They just want to make the glass half full. I like to make it half empty. So if it comes half full, then I'm a genius. If we act like everything's great, then and it's not, then I'm a dumbass. So I think that's the biggest thing is find somebody you trust and listen to them. Don't listen to them when they just tell you what you want to hear.
You hit it on the head. I think, as the social media deal has made this such a comparison game. It's made it, if there was no Twitter, no Instagram, I don't know how much someone else would care, how many other, offers that other people get. I think you see how much parents are pouring into this. They're not going on vacation. They're not, saving up money because they're sending their kids through these travel things that do cost a lot of money. And a lot of these people are business minded. What's the return on my investment? And then they naturally, tie their identity to their kids' performance to their offers. And that's the worst thing. I think it's so unfair as a parent to tie your identity into your kid. You need to have your own life. You need to have your own deal. Love your kids, be happy for them, teach them to run their own race, appreciate what does come their way. But, at the end of the day, they'll get what they deserve. There's no secrets to this. I'm not, getting a kid's not getting an offer because, you text and say, hey, offer this kid. That's not, it's not how this thing works. And so I think that's such a dangerous place for parents to get into is, but I get it. You're spending your time, your money, and you love your kid. And so you want them and, and like you said, that was the number one thing I always dealt with as a travel basketball coach through the years was, well, she's got this and I think I'm better. And like you said, sometimes you may be, sometimes you're not, and they don't want to hear that either. But parents, if
sometimes the parent might be right, but it's just like we said about that car that we think's worth 150 grand and the blue book says it's worth 2,500. It is what it is. You might be right. We'll prove them wrong later, and comparison is the thief of joy. I don't like using I like making up my own quotes and shit, Scottisms, but that's the real. I mean, that's the, you were happy with making $200 a week until you found out the guy that's working beside you is making $225 a week. Well, you were just happy 5 minutes ago. What does it matter what he has? It's just and these are the same type of principles that I try to pound in our kids' head about life. And it's the same, it's the same type of thing. I don't care what the next Under Armour or Nike team or Adidas team's contract is. It has nothing to do with mine. But when you start playing a comparison game, that's when everybody gets all rattled. So.
Yeah. Well, selfishly, I want to know this, but I think you're a great person to talk to. You've had multiple kids come up through the basketball world, very successful basketball players and high school careers, fantastic college careers. If you could go back and to when your kids, from when they first put a basketball in their hands, what are some things that you think you did unbelievably well to help set them up for success in their basketball journey? And then are there any things you look back and you go, I wish I had known this then that I found out later? And like I said, everybody, heck, I've got, young kids that are getting ready to come up and they're going to start playing. And as much as I've been in this thing, I want to make sure I'm doing it right by them.
Yeah. I think everybody's a case by case, every kid is different. So it matters a little bit with each kid. If you've got 4 kids, you can't handle them all the same. So I think it kind of varies. I think, with my oldest daughter, when I first was coming up and I was just a dumb parent, 90% of the parents in my program right now, a dumb basketball parent, not dumb at life. I think I was in the car rides and I was in her ear a little too much. I was like, ball is life, Now, I took a little overboard. So I think that's one of the things I did wrong to a certain extent, but it's also one of the things I did right too, because our relationship, it just grew tight and it gave us something with a father and a daughter. Not like we're not going to get our nails done. So, I think I invested a lot of time, and I think I was a little hard. And as each kid of mine, it's 4, I've had 3 play Division I basketball so far, and I've got a 2027 daughter coming up. I've been a little less stressful on each one of them. And I kind of learned and I kind of understand that there's more to life than basketball. It's our relationships. I understand, I miss them car rides. So I think, the car rides home after we had a good game, just being in time. I think we got to really embrace and enjoy the time that we have with our kids, and not put so much pressure on them. Let them be a kid, let them have fun. It's easier said than done because I didn't do it the first time, and I don't expect these other parents to do it the first time either. I think from a basketball piece of getting better, of getting my kids better, I think I was too wired up on they don't need to play bad basketball. We don't need to go play 100 games. We need to do straight skill work every day. And we did. But them cones never stole the ball from my daughters. Stole the ball from my daughters. My daughters beat them off the dribble every time. So I think as I went older, I think there needs to be more live competition. I'm saying in your workouts, it's got to be some one-on-one stuff. If you got the luxury to play 3-on-3, you've got to play in live action and not just skill stuff. I don't think I understood that piece. as much. I think with my oldest, I didn't realize the importance of our strength. Like, you think basketball is just skill, 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 and that's what I thought. You know, you can take a strong, fast-ass soccer player and lock down a basketball player. Now, the soccer player can't dribble on the other end, but I think Steph Curry's trainer said it not too long ago, and it kind of went viral. Like, how do you get better? What's the quickest thing you can get better at basketball? Bigger, faster, stronger. So I think as I've understood this, main thing mistake-wise, as far as like getting the kid better, more live competition. Not necessarily saying playing a bunch of bad basketball games. I'm talking about in workouts and stuff. And I think it's paying just as much attention to your body as your game. Is the main thing. Bigger, faster, stronger.
All right. No, I think that's awesome. And that's, what I'm interested in hearing. And I think everybody would love to learn. This is, of all the episodes I've done, this was probably the episode I was the most excited about. I've always had a passion for helping the player, no matter what program I was coached with in the summer. And the education piece was just lacking. And there was questions, I was in it, and there was questions I didn't really have answers to. And as I have athletes that we're recruiting, or just families that I've got to know that trust me and call and ask questions, this is a situation that happens a ton. And I think people just are curious. But at the end of a season, as you're looking at different players, is there conversations that are had with each player about where they're at, what their kind of goals or plans are those things realistic? And then when you're looking at what team to play on, is that a decision that, hey, we're gonna lay it out here for you. We have a spot on, say, our top 17U team on the circuit, and you can come be guy number 10. And frankly, there's gonna be some games where you don't play very much, if any at all. Or maybe you could go to the UA Rise team, go get in front of a bunch of coaches at a level that's probably more recruiting you, and give you more opportunities to be on the floor and things like that. And again, those aren't always comfortable conversations, that you may lose a kid over something like that. Do you lay out both those options, or do you kind of assemble your team and say, hey, this is the team you're on, here's what we're doing? What does that piece look like for you guys?
It's a little different with every kid, There's not like exit meetings like you guys would do at a college, like at the end of the year. There's not an exit meeting. There's not a preseason meeting with each kid. But is there certain kids, like for example, there's kids on my 17U team that right now, like I had to call and talk to them, like, hey, I need you. You're going to be able, I know you're a 2-guard, and I know you shoot it really well, to really help with us next year. You're going to need to be able to play the point some too. So you really need to hone in on your ball skills. You need to be able to understand ball screens a little bit better, stuff like that. So some kids, yes. There's probably, if we have a roster of 10, there might be 1 or 2 kids that I'll call and say, here's the 2 options that we have. I'm not really sure what's best. I'll lay it out for them. Like, you play on this team, you probably do X, Y, and Z. If you're on this team, you'll probably do X, Y, and Z. And then I like to make sure that staff, the parents, and the kid all wants to be, try to come to a common spot with them. So we talk to some about what they need to do. We don't talk to all of them. Sometimes I know they're in a good situation. You're in a really good high school situation. You got a really good trainer. I'm not trying to bark on you until, like, I'll tell kids if I know that they're going to be on my team next year. Now, if I don't know, I won't say it. If I know, and I'm not to tell them, like, you're going to have to get stronger. I need to see you get a little bit stronger. You need to get in the weight room, and then you're going to be on my team next year. Like, if you get stronger. But if I tell them that, they're already on my team, because I'm not trying to disappoint a kid. But no, we don't have too many conversations with the kid and asking the kid, like, hey, just what team you want to be on? No, we kind of make this. And it's kind of like, we don't go to the doctor and say, take her appendix out. You don't want me to look at it? No, just go ahead and take her appendix out. We don't do that. But we and so everything is a little bit different with each kid, but we don't have a set schedule, like, so, it's a combination of things. But we do, if I know a kid needs to do something in particular to be on our team, or needs to improve to get ready for college or whatever, yeah, we'll talk about it, but it's not with every kid.
Aside from working on your game, obviously that's the number one thing you can do to help yourself get recruited. What's a way that, especially these tweener players and And it may even be, I'm trying to play NAI basketball. I just want to get a scholarship. What's the number one way players can help themselves get recruited aside from just working on their game?
Besides that, maybe don't wave the sign. You know, the Little Caesars, the guy $5 pizza, they don't even look attractive. We're like, man, I don't want to go over and buy it. The fake car salesman, push this shit down people's throats. That's just like, you're just like pouring yourself all over these people. That's a turnoff. And I think some people, parents want to help their kids so bad, they don't understand. They're turning these schools off. So they're thinking like, all right, I just got an email from the mom. I just got an email from the high school coach, but they play for Scott. Let me just pick up the phone and call Scott. You know, you're going to play in front of them, and you don't want to beg somebody to love you. Like, I think that people think like, oh yeah, the coach said call me, and I'm sure you do it too. You're like, call me every 2 weeks, kid. You don't really mean that. I don't care what you say. You don't want to talk to that kid every 2 weeks for 52 weeks. But the ones that do it, I know it's a turnoff. Just like when we're recruiting kids, or after every season, I get the same inbox from the same kid 64 times, and her mom and then her dad. Like, I automatically think she's no good, and she might be really good. But I automatically think, man, they are just begging to get over here. It's fine to reach out. And it's fine to, ask somebody to reach out to them. But I don't think we need to beg. I think when we beg, it makes us look less attractive to the coach.
Yeah, and I think, too, there's a little bit of like, are they high maintenance, too? You know, I think there's also, is this kid going to need a lot of attention? Because like you said, if they're good enough and if you or somebody I know, if you say, hey, take a look at this kid, that's enough. I mean, they're going to 100% get on our radar. But the other thing that they don't realize, we're not always the smartest, but we're not stupid. If you've sent me 48 DMs, you've sent every coach in America, because
Exactly.
who am I? You know what I'm saying? I'm barely on the website, so if you send me 100
especially if you're getting email, like,
yeah.
They had to search for your email. They're doing, that's a mass thing that they're doing. So I think parents just relax. The process, it might not be as fast as somebody else's, or it might be a little fast, but it doesn't matter. There's not a whole lot you can do, but get better. I mean, you got to be with a good program. You got to be with a good situation. I understand that. But even if you're not in a perfect situation, you're really good, they're going to find you. Like, I mean, I looked at a kid day before yesterday, committed to a big school. Her AAU team program was terrible, but she was really, really good. They found her. Now that's a really, really good kid is different. So I mean that's kind of in a nutshell.
If you could change one thing about travel basketball, what would it be?
I mean, you can't, because it's just kind of about life. Like, yeah, if I could change one thing about life, it just. So many people just bullshit everybody, and everybody just lies, and everybody just like it's. I mean, that's the biggest problem. There's just so much bullshit, and there's new ranking services, and this and that, and this and that, and this recruiting service, and it just take out all the nonsense and let's just enjoy the game and take out all this hoopla. Like that's But I love this game. I love the travel circuit. I enjoy the ups and downs. So there's not a whole lot I would take from it, because I feel like even stuff that we don't like, we learn from. Right. So I feel like, and we understand, it teaches us how to navigate through life. But yeah, I guess just, all the people just selling dreams.
Man, what are the red flags? Because I mean, we've been in this long enough. I mean, you figure out the people and you figure out whatever, and so it's easy. But for someone who doesn't know, what are some of the red flags that should probably get you on high alert for this may not be this may be some BS?
Yeah, if I can get you an offer, red flag. If you don't play for me, that school's not going to offer you, red flag. If I'm about to do something I've never did before, red flag. We're building something that's going to be, never been, red flag, all them promises are red flags, because you can't, because we don't know what's going to happen. I think the promises, like too many promises is a red flag. I try to undersell everything and over deliver, and that's a green flag for us. But I think the main red flag, you're trying to pick a travel team or a high school team or a college, too many promises. Like I think that's the red flag is don't go for promises.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, like you said, even from the college, standpoint, as we, go through this and talk to people and, you hear what some school that, all the things they promise that kid and, if they call and say no and, the only thing you say is, well, this is the first time I promise you anything. And I promise, we'll see you in the portal. It's not, this is not going to be what you think it is. And, you just wish somebody would give them some of that advice. But what do you think's the best thing your program does? What is the thing you're the most proud about with what you guys do?
I think it's our culture. Everybody says that. I think that one of the best things of our program is it teaches these kids it's bigger than themselves. There's not one person that's bigger than the program. I think what we do, we put you in a competitive environment. We teach you to play along other kids with the same interest, the same level, and then you're going to have to compete all the time. I think the life lessons in our program that we try to instill, life's not fair, get them in that type of mentality. I think that our program just provides what they're going to get in college. Like, we don't have prima donnas. We're not catering to you. We're not catering to anybody. We'll adapt stuff to make everything working, but we're just not going to just break our back for some, like the big top dogs in the industry is not breaking their back. Like, they're putting a competitive environment for everybody to compete with each other and against the best. So I think that's what our program is about, is our culture. Our life is not fair mentality, and you're going to get what you deserve. That's what I like about our program, our staff, our coaches, and it's not an I program, it's a we program. I tip my hat to our staff that helps me make it like that. It helps make our culture. That's what I'm most proud of.
No, for sure, man. And I think when you're living what you're saying and what you're saying you're about, I think that's telling. And having been able to recruit a lot of players from your guys' programs over the years, that's the one thing that I've always appreciated is, you know what you're getting, and you're getting a kid that they probably get it, and they're probably going to stay, because that's been a real part of their world. It hasn't been, you want this, here you go. You're not happy about this, here you go. I think as parents, as coaches, as leaders, especially for today's youth, we have to find ways to help them fail. We have to make sure that we're not preparing the path for them, but we're preparing them for the path. And that's the ultimate disservice at the end of the day that we can do for these kids, because it's not going to keep happening. I mean, your talent has got, and your talent, your parents have gotten you away with way too much. Well, those two things don't matter anymore after you graduate from college. That's huge.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think lessons, after one of our last tournament games, after a game, I seen a kid with tears in her eyes, a kid that I really, really like, and she's really, really good. And the family really, really listens to me. And I walk over, I'm like, "What's wrong, babe?" She was crying because she didn't get to play enough. And it was the first time that had kind of hit her. I walked over, I'm like, "This is good for you." And the parent and the kid understands, and they trust me. I'm like, "This is good for you because this is what's going to happen at college." When you get there as a freshman, you might play 20 minutes the first game and ball out. And the next game, you might only get 2 minutes. And if you've never experienced that in your life, you've never went through any ups and downs, you're not ready, And I think that's a big learning point for that kid and that family, and they understood and they trusted it. But them type of lessons, that's what we provide. And when the parents really trust us and believe us, that's when they get to you guys' level, your level, that understand it a little bit more. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, man. Well, I seriously appreciate you taking the time to hop on, share the game, share some knowledge. Like I said, I think the lack of information or the lack of good information in the recruiting world is huge and evident. And so, really just appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us.
Nah, I appreciate you, my brother.
All right, man. I'm sure I'll see you in the gym on the road somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. Be safe, brother.
All right, we are joined today, Coach Stephen Pratt of Full Package Athletics on the Adidas circuit. Super fortunate to have Coach Pratt with us. I've had a great pleasure and great fortune getting to know him a little bit over the last couple of years and following along. Have been able to recruit some of his players, and you can tell the message that he sends is received, and just how the players carry themselves, how their teams carry themselves, and really glad to spend some time with him today. Coach Pratt, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm looking forward to it. I like how you guys do business and how Murray State plays the game and how they treat their kids. So it's always good. You're always looking for the good people in this business.
You aren't kidding, man. We're going to jump right in. I'm going to have a couple different travel ball coaches on, and this episode is extremely important to me. It's something I'm passionate about. I mean, we're going to ask some tough questions that parents and young recruitable athletes have. And, Coach, what would you say is the primary responsibility of your program to your players?
Well, the way I do it is we're here to develop them as people, and so we're about development. We use the game to teach them, but really we're trying to teach them about themselves, trying to help them find themselves. And you do that by helping them find a role on a team and developing as a teammate, and then figuring out what they want in the game, and then try to help them develop who they want to be, give them a chance to compete and grow. So I just look at it as more of a thing of discovery as a group, kind of like The Hobbit. We're going to go on an adventure. And then we try to find a way to help the kids fit in and play together and have a good experience, but also learn about each other, not just themselves. Because a lot of people come into the game, it's all about themselves and what they can do for themselves. But I really try to teach them how to be teammates and how to help others. So we're development all the way at Full Package.
Well, and I think that's, one of the points you brought up about putting them in the right position too. You mentioned, understanding their goals. So I assume there's conversations that happen before you get going about, what is the end goal for you? What does that look like? What do you want out of this thing? And then also, I think it's great that you're not just throwing people at something and just putting 5 players on the floor and just kind of letting it go, but making sure people understand what position that they should be in, how they can be successful, what they can be at the next level, and different things like that. So those conversations, you guys have those at an individual level with all your players?
Well, not only the players, but the parents. I also think I've always felt this. I don't know why, because my mom, she loved me, supported me, but she really was never involved in my sport. I just pursued it but in today's world, the parents are usually very heavily involved with the child. So we really try to have those conversations with the child and the parent. And we try to figure out how to help both of them, how to help the parent group and how to help the child, and try to walk them through, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what we're about. So, teach shooting, ball handling. But we do a lot of playing. And by having the kids play a lot, one-on-one, zigzag one-on-one, it's a big drill for us. Because I think playing the game helps you find yourself in the game. If you're competing and you got to stop somebody and they've got to stop you, you start figuring out who you are. And so we want to let them play to kind of find who they are. And then as we do that, we try to break that down, give the parents feedback. And also, when we find the good in the kid, we try to tell the parent, hey, this is what the kid did well. I just think those stories are so important for parents to hear. And I think it's very important for the kids to hear how, this is how you want to be in life. You don't want to just be this way. You just want to just go make jump shots. If all you're doing is making jump shots and collecting trophies, and you're not developing friendships and you're not helping people, what are you really getting out of it? Because I'm sitting in a trophy room. I have a lot of trophies, and nobody ever wants to come see my trophies. Yeah. No one ever has called me to talk to me about my trophies ever.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And that's not. those are the right things to say. And I think people, they may say that, but it's just so evident in watching your teams and watching your programs that you guys are doing something so right. That one of my favorite things is watching you guys when your younger teams play. The older guys are over there and they're not on their phones and they're not just there because somebody asked them to be there. I mean, they're there. They are the team's biggest cheerleaders. They're hyping them up like crazy. And then when they come over, they're coaching them up. And the level of engagement and care they have for each other, and they don't even realize that makes you want to recruit them even more. When you see,
well, it's funny because I have a great 8th grade group right now. I mean, and I don't just mean as players. We got a bunch of kids that are going to be Division I for sure in that group, but they're just good people. Like they're earnest, they work hard, and they were wasn't a great practice for them last night actually. And I just said, listen, if you don't care about others, if you can't do this caring about others, then I don't want you here. I don't. I just understand if you can't care about your teammates, it's just not going to work. It's not our culture. It's not who we are. So you need to get organized on that. And I know who you guys are. And I told them that. I said, I believe in you now to get there. And by the end of the practice, it was great. Loud, cheering each other on. They were finding the younger kids and they were looking after them. And I told them, I go, hey, where are the high school kids? I go, look around. Where are they? They're like, they're not here. I'm like, yeah, they're not going to be for the next 4 months. So you're it. You're the leaders. So what are you going to do? So it was real powerful, and they responded so well. So I was very, very pleased with how they responded, which they always do. That's a good group. They do. So fun to work with.
Yeah, that's. I mean, like I said, when the things that you're saying you're about, your kids are living it. I mean, that's big time. And what they're going back and sharing with their high school teams, I think that probably gets the high school coaches excited too. Another thing that I'm always intrigued about as a former high school coach and a former, travel coach, I think one thing I hated was the disconnect between each side. During high school season, the high school coaches wanted to complain about the AAU guys, and then the summer they wanted to bash the high school coach and the way they're doing things. And if we're about the kids, well, what's the best? When mom and dad play nice, that's best for the kid. When the high school coach and AAU coach can sync up, be together, and work together, that's best case scenario for the kids. How can we do that? Well, on either side, we've got high school coaches that listen. We've got AAU coaches that listen. How can we get in sync to get a plan together that's best for the kid?
Well, I try to be an ally to everyone that I can be. If I see a high school coach who's treating the kids poorly or an AAU coach, I struggle with that. But if I just see coaches working hard and really, when I say treat them poorly, I mean lying, being abusive in their language. I just can't get with that. And if anybody's seen me coach, I'll go in on a kid. I'll get to their core. I'll go right for their soul, because I want to get to what is real with them and what are they really about. And, we're in urgent situations when we're competing. I don't like to just play game like the whole showcase basketball. I'm not about that. That's what I like about 3SSB is you're playing to win, and there's a championship and we've all got a shot at it. But if a coach is like, I heard something the coach said just the other day, high school coach said to a kid, and I was flabbergasted. Yeah, MF the kid, told them they were dumb. And I just can't ever appreciate that. So if there's that, I'm going to fight against that. I'm going to stand with the kids against that for sure. But that's a small percentage.
Right.
Most coaches are good people. They care. And so my kids aren't going to come and complain to me about the coaches. It ain't a soft landing pad over here. It ain't. Like your job is to help that coach, help that school, help your teammates, be a leader. I try to have a good relationship. I try to be open to talk to high school coaches. But most of the time, I'm just trying to stay out of their way and be supportive on my end and observe and root for my kids and those programs those kids are in, so that they do a good job. My kids do a good job and are good teammates and are coachable.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I did, and it was kind of, double-edged, but I would reach out when I was coaching, and in Kentucky, I knew most of their high school coaches, the kids that I had on my team anyway, but I would reach out before we got started, once I knew my roster, and I would just say, hey, tell them you're around them all the time, a lot more than I am. What are some areas that you've been talking to them about working on? Are there any parts of their game that you've really been emphasizing, or you've had conversations with them that they want to get better at? And I can, just kind of keep plugging away at that alongside you. And could I do a ton of that? I mean, some, we get, X amount of practice, which wasn't much. Then we get games, and you can encourage them, whether that's play off 2 feet more, stop trying to block shots, whatever their emphasis was. But, more than anything, it was just kind of me reaching out and being willing to say, hey, I care what you think. I'm invested in your kid too. And was just kind of that opening dialogue piece too of letting them know, hey, here's my number. I'm, for your kid. We're not going to do any bad mouthing. I don't, and I'm not going to hear them, doing it either. So, I think there's little things like that, either side can do to help some of that. I think one thing I've loved, in hearing you talk before, that the kids need to struggle. They need to go through adversity. They need to be in a tough situation. Like you said, not to that extreme crazy sense, but in the sense of life's not going to be easy. I mean, life's not going to be fair all the time. You're not going to get what you want every second you want. They need to struggle. You're going to build character there. You're going to build resiliency there. They need that. And we don't need to try to go pave the path for them. We need to let them learn how to navigate that path.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We got beat twice on Sunday with my 8th graders, which we lost one game all fall. And, but when it was over, I told the girls, good, that's good. I go, now we know. Now we got stuff to work on. And I go, girls, the number one culprit here is the coaches. Now we're going to work on fixing it. And I didn't get much sleep on Sunday. I worked on, all right, what do we got to work on? We got to get tougher on the catch. We got to move the ball quicker. And we got to be able to make a decision on the catch. And when we dribble it, we need to be efficient. Like I said, it's like a journey, right? The adventure. So I want to be with them. I don't want to blame them. I do want to hold them accountable. But I think to hold the kids accountable, you got to hold yourself accountable first. When I hear coaches complain about kids, I always, okay, what's the problem? Then let's go talk to the kid. Let's work on the problem. I think you got to take your own inventory as a coach first. You got to look in the mirror. And that's worked well for me. And I'm going to stick with that. And then what I saw was my team and the players get better. We're on the journey with them. We're not just like, okay, this is your fault. If you don't hold yourself accountable, and it's always about the kid, all you do is beat their confidence down. But if you hold yourself accountable, you show, okay, this is where I made mistakes. This is where I got to grow as a coach. And here's what we're doing. Well, then there's automatic accountability towards the kid. Automatic. Because if you're holding yourself accountable, then you're setting the tone for everyone.
Yeah. And there's some vulnerability there that I think people are afraid to show. I think people, especially in a coach setting, well, coaches are supposed to have all the answers, so I can't ever show that I,
Let me tell you, that's a lie. I just read a wonderful book, and I recommend this to all coaches. Red and Me. It's Bill Russell's book about his friendship with Red Auerbach. And I used to think I was pretty smart, and I was ahead of the curve in coaching. I got NBA, Olympians, all this. I read this book. This man was coached in the 50s, and how he built relationships and how he evaluated Red Auerbach I'm talking about. And this is Bill Russell. Bill Russell's sharp, man. He's so smart. And he talks about Red and their relationship, but it was really about the relationship. And I strongly recommend that book. It is so good about how you study the player and work on how to best utilize your players. Red was a team coach and evaluated talent, put teams together, but how he studied his players and was always looking to give each player an edge. I just thought he was so far ahead of his time. I'll just say this, he would put an offense in, and then he'd tell the players, okay, you figure out how you guys want to make adjustments in it. And he wouldn't even participate. And the players would just go work out the different actions that they were going to run out of the entry into the offense. I've never even thought of that. I'm always going to teach the reads. And so I have to rethink. Sometimes you got to get out of the way and let them work out how they want to make plays.
That's pretty cool. I mean, they know their game better than anybody. And like you said, we have these reads in our mind, and we take some creativity away from them, and and they get out there together. Well, hey, I'm really good at setting this type screen, and you're really good at coming off this way, and they could probably cook something up and go execute it a lot better than us. formulating it for them. That's pretty cool. I haven't really even thought of that either, but we've got some, age and stage appropriate level players that could be really, really pretty cool to see them come up with some things and see them be creative.
Well, and I had 2 kids on the Duke championship team with John Shire, who I trained. He's out of this area. And Todd Zafrowski was on that team at Duke when they won the national championship. And they really played offense a little differently. I thought it was like a circle motion. They really had 2 bigs, really active screening. And they did all this creative cutting. And the bigs would catch it a lot and they'd kick it back out. They were like the first team I'd seen where the bigs were looking to re-enter the ball to three-point land from inside out. And I saw Chris Collins on the road that year because I was coaching on the boys' side then at full package. And I was watching, he was there watching games recruiting in Cincinnati. And I said, hey, what were the rules in your offense? I mean, you guys had so much creative, the back cutting, out of the motion action, and how the post players would catch. And he goes, well, they just developed that themselves. He goes, we put the action in, and then they just learned how to make reads, and they developed their own patterns of movement. The motion offense where the players are making the reads off screens and how to read screens and how to recreate, and then what Coach K had done with that, and to kind of ask a coach who I trust, and he just came right and said, hey, the players figured that out,
Yeah.
So I'm a little slow, obviously. I'm a little slow. I'm behind the 1950s. I'm behind, 15 years ago, but I'm trying to catch up here, so.
Trends come back. So we'll all be running it in 10 years. Dribble drive is almost on its way out the door. So we're circling the wagons here.
Well, I try to look at patterns of the game. And I said like about 6 years ago, I said, post play is going to come back because the defense was so focused on the outside, and it has. And then the next thing that I've been teaching is that off ball movement's coming back, how to read the game off the ball without the basketball. So I'm looking for how defenses play offenses and then how offenses are playing, and then look at, all right, what's the next thing to help your players be more successful and how people are playing the game. So for me right now, I think off-ball movement's the biggest thing that we're trying to teach anyways.
Well, 100%. And like you said, you try to get ahead of the curve. I ran pack line when, at the very beginning of my career, when everybody was on the line, up the line, and dribble penetration was king, and we had a lot of success. Well, now everybody plays pack line, so off-ball motions and more motion concepts are good pack line beaters. You're seeing a lot more of that. So I'm 100% in agreement there that, and I could sit here and talk for another hour through some of that stuff, and that's, that stuff gets me going. But I think you got hit the head on the nail there as far as the arms war of offense and defense. But I've got, I think one of the hardest things that I see, and I don't know who will always tell kids the truth, but when you've got a player who is going into their, 16 or 17U summer, they were on maybe a top level team at the 15 or 16U level, and they've got a choice to make. Do I want to go sit on this top circuit 17U team's bench, be guy number 8 or 9, and frankly, probably not play a ton, but I get to say I'm on that team and I get to be on that team? Or do I want to go to one of their secondary teams where I can really kind of be the guy, showcase a ton of my skills, and play in front of coaches who may be more of what my recruitment level is? Are those conversations that would you sit down with those players and those families and say, hey, we've got a spot for you on our 17U team, but truthfully, this other option may be better for you if this is what you want, but we're going to give you that option? Or do you create your team, you put them out there, and if they ask, maybe then you entertain getting them to a different team?
Again, the recruiting piece and kids chasing an image, I try to stay away from. I'm aware of it. I know that they're worried about that. I'm not. I'm worried about putting good teams together. And so as what we try to teach here, I try to ask them the question, well, what do you want? What are you looking to do? I got a bunch of kids out there right now. They're freshmen, and they're trying to find a way to get on the court. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think having to figure out how to get better is something that I try to practice in my own life. When it comes to here, I'm trying to put together at full package at our place, I'm trying to put good teams together where you can grow as a player and as a teammate. And that's not always on the first team at the younger age. Sometimes we had some kids leave our team last year because they didn't like what their role was going to be. So they went to other teams. And I got no issue with that. I think you want to find a place where you can play the role you want to play. And I support that. I want you to be happy. I want you to have a good, I may have a different opinion, think maybe we're going to help you grow and focus on your development a little bit more, maybe play you in a different position or something. But, you want to give kids that choice. But I don't like to chase the shiny thing, and I don't want to teach chasing the shiny thing. To me, it's about the people. Find the right people. Find the people that are going to help you grow. Find the people that are going to help you be who you want to be. They're going to let you perform at the level you can be. But mainly, I think if you're a developing player and you're trying to get better, go where you're going to play. Sitting on the bench, coaches tell you, hey, you sit on the bench, you're going to develop, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe for a window of time, but not for 2 years, not for 3 years, And that's why the transfer portal's popping. People are dying to get in that transfer portal. I'll tell you that.
100%. And that leads to another question. Fit is so important. If you are a half court player and that's where you're going to thrive, reading and coming off actions, sitting down and guarding, and maybe you're not the most athletic, but you're really smart. And I see players like that, and they go to a team that, presses the whole game and runs dribble drive, and they're not that successful. And it's not very mind-blowing. And I know you don't want to get in the way in recruiting, but do you guys have those conversations about fit? Because a college coach, if they see a player, they want a player, they're going to pitch whatever they have to pitch to the kid. And I don't know why some of these college coaches go take a player that, I don't know. Maybe they just see they're talented and they're just like, we'll make it work. But are those conversations had?
Yeah, I honestly think there's a real problem with how the NCAA is limiting how colleges can collect information. And it makes it a little bit more complicated. I mean, for a college coach, you got to really do your homework. You can't just go to a few viewing periods in a couple high school games and know who a player is. I just don't think you can. Most of them, I'm trying to get them film, and I'm trying to get them in touch so they can evaluate. I just think you guys are in a hard spot. I just don't think you're allowed enough freedom in recruiting, to be honest. And so I think it's hard to evaluate kids appropriately. And so for me, I try to ask the question, how do you play defense? Okay, well, if you're picking up full court, you probably want to get this kid. If you guys are playing full court, then that's probably not a good fit. You play half court defense, this kid's smart, she knows angles. I try to give a coach insight, but I try not to give him too much because, who wants to listen to an old AU coach try to tell him, how to recruit a kid? I'd really like to just give him film or get him opportunities to build a relationship and go evaluate the kid. I try to help, but it's you guys are in a complicated world. It's hard. I mean, when I'm recruiting a kid, I go watch. I want to get them in the gym, work them out, see how they handle my coaching, see if they like me. I'll tell people all the time, well, you got to like me. If you don't like the way I coach, it ain't going to work. So you guys have got to a lot of times make a decision on a kid. You never get to coach him.
Right. Well, that's why people like me like talking to young folks like you and the high school coach and anybody that won't BS us. Because I do want to know. And it's nice when you got people that won't BS you, because we'll listen, but we know which ones are full of it, and he'll tell you the truth. So,
well, you know what edge that I got, Wyatt, is that I'm always trying to learn. I just want to learn every day. That's the advice my first mentor gave me, Bob Rowe. I was in my first year as a varsity coach, and I was just overwhelmed by what was happening. And I just said to him, I go, the more I learn, the more I realize I have more to learn. And he just looked me dead in the eye. And he said, when you stop learning, get out. And so I don't ever want to get out. I love the game. I love being part of the game. I love the people in the game. And I don't ever want to get out. So I'm driven to learn on a daily basis. And so I give any coach advice, pick good people and learn. Try to learn every day.
That's quality stuff. If you could change one thing about travel basketball, what would it be?
I think you got to play for something. I think playing showcase games and just going to play like, hey, we're going to go get recruited and we're playing so these college coaches come watch us. I mean, that individualizes the game, and it's the ultimate team game. It's an individual game. You got to work on your craft. You got to be good at your skills. You got to be able to fit in, be a good teammate. That's all. There's some individual accountability on those things. But the game at the highest level, that's the ultimate team game. So I think that to play the game the right way, you got to be playing for something. You got to play together. And showcase basketball kind of works against that. And so we want to play for something. So like the kids know when you come here, we're trying to win. So you're going to sit on the bench sometimes if I don't think it's going to give us an edge to win.
Well, there's, again, this is a whole nother episode, but it's just a different time, and that's fine. But when I was, coming up, if you lost, your butt was sitting for a little bit till you got to go play again. And we just want to play.
Exactly.
And so that's what the great thing about the leagues and the circuits, truly is. It all matters. There's no throwaway games. Everything does matter. You are competing because you can get to this level, and it's so hard, and it's a job. And you just would think that everybody at this level just loves it like crazy, and they'll do anything to win. And oftentimes, the coin toss differentiator in games is just who competes harder and wants it more. And that can get lost if you're just, I play at 8 this morning. Doesn't matter if I win or lose. I play at noon again, no matter what. I play again and cool.
Yeah.
And if that's all it was, you lose that. That's a skill. That's a craft. And we don't think of it that way, but that shows its head when you get here.
Yeah. No, and that's why that's what I like about the 3SSB. Like our tournament games, like we've lost some tough games, just close games, and then you get back and you're playing for a spot, and you're back in the tournament. So you're playing for something, and we're playing for something every day. That's how we wanna do it. We want to play. If we're playing pickup, we play pickup games in our training because we don't think training is putting cones out. We think training is playing. Teach a skill, and now let's go play. There's going to be a winner. There's going to be a loser. And I think it's important. I think it's important to play to win. I think it's important to learn how to win. I think it's also important to lose. And you learn from losing, and people trying to protect people from that is just not, it's not reality. And if you get a kid that's only played showcase basketball and now you're trying to coach him at the college level, good luck.
Coach, that was great stuff. Seriously, I appreciate you taking the time to hop on with me and share your knowledge, a true student of the game.
I'd love every minute of it. I'm nothing without players. And I don't mean like a good player. I mean a kid that wants to be coached. And I understand that, and I respect that. And so to me, I focus on developing coaches and developing players. And I tell kids all the time, thank you. Because you allow me to coach you. It's a gift to me. So,
well, I think you're truly one of those coaches, man. Like you're a stepping stone for kids, and not a tombstone for kids. So love the way you guys do it. Love your program. Love your kids, and just appreciate you like crazy, Coach.
Thanks, Wyatt. I appreciate you too, buddy.
All right, we're joined by Coach Greg Logsdon of Missouri Phenom in the Nike EYBL circuit. Super fortunate to have Coach Logsdon on. He is truly an unbelievable guy. One of the few people that can really get into a kid and 3 seconds later wrap their arm around him. And, you can just tell that the players love him. They love playing for him. And not every kid that you recruit talks about their coach a ton. And Greg always comes up in conversation, and he's always good for a laugh. I appreciate you getting out of the blind, hunting this morning, and getting on with us.
Good to be here, man. Appreciate you having me.
Coach, what would you say is the primary responsibility of your program to your players?
I think you got lots of great questions here. I think the biggest thing is to develop them. And the exposure is kind of the byproduct of that. If you play in the right tournaments and you have the right skill sets and you're on the right court at the right level, the exposure will happen in front of the right people. Now, that's easy for us to say, right? Because we're on the EYBL circuit, we get to play in front of a lot of great coaches. But like we've got kids at every level, from JUCO, D3, NAI, D2, kids playing on the NCCCA circuit, low major, mid major, high major. But the biggest thing that I tell every parent when they call, regardless of what age they are, is it's all about development. You've got to develop the skill, and you got to develop the player, and you got to develop the kid. So I think one of the biggest strengths that we have is like we put the kid first, and making sure they're getting better at basketball while enjoying it is still, to me, the most important thing that we do.
Yeah. You talk about, You talk about enjoying it. And I tell, a question I get kind of a lot from different people is, what are you, as a college coach, what are you looking for? Like it's not real hard to see the kid that can jump out of the gym and has all the tools in the world and all the talent. Like that stuff's not hard to see. Something that's kind of unique we said that I tell them, I'm looking for players that play with joy. This is a long, hard deal. People don't understand. I did not understand as a high school and AAU coach on the Nike circuit. I did not understand how hard college basketball was and what all went into it. And if you don't love it, you're not going to make it, and you're not going to be the best version of yourself. And so finding people that play with joy and you can, as a high school or summer coach, you can help manifest that, and you can help build that, and you can keep the joy in it because it's basketball, and it's great, the popularity of the women's game, and it's still growing, and that's awesome. But you can also, it can become a cultural thing, and you can play so much that you forget why you ever started. I try to tell people all the time, don't forget the little girl that fell in love with just chasing the ball around when you couldn't even get it up to the rim. Like don't forget that, because that's going to carry you a long way. And that's something that I love that you do and you guys do, is just keep that a part of it. You guys have kids coming from all over the place, constantly coming to train and with the hubs that you guys use. And I think that's so incredible. And, that's something that I tell everybody. When you do all the training, love it. It's supposed to be fun. This is a game. I mean, yes, it's,
we get, I've been fortunate enough to coach the 15 EYBL, and I really enjoy playing that age group because you typically get them, unless they're playing up, you get them after they have just finished their first year of high school basketball. It's the first time in their life they've had to practice 6 days a week. It's the first time in their life, if they're at a really good program, it's the first time in their life they've had to watch video on Sundays, come in for shoot around on Sundays, have full page scouting reports with player profiles, right, and tendencies. And typically, the 10 kids that we take on the 15 are all elite scorers. So you've got to convince them all, right? You've got to convince them all when they get there that, look, you're not getting 18 to 20 shots a game. There just aren't that many shots left in a 32-minute game with 10 really good players. But the biggest thing that I try to remind the young kids are, because you got to remember, like, these are just little kids, right, playing basketball. We had two 8th graders playing with us last year, 2028s, who are just elite. But I had to remind myself, they're 14, right? Like, they're 14 years old. So you just have to remind kids all the time, especially because the kids and the parents come in with such big expectations on the EYBL circuit, that you have to remind people all the time that it's like, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make a lot of them. And there's going to be days where you just don't play well, and the kid on the other team's really good too. And you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and that's okay. Just keep playing, right? When things don't go right, which is going to happen on this circuit, just keep playing. We said that hundreds of times last summer, and like, kids want to play perfect, right? And they come out of high school where an elite PG might have one turnover a game. Like, if you've got the ball in your hands for 24 minutes, you're going to have more than one turnover if you're making some plays, right, on the circuit to play on, right? So just reminding them, it's okay to make a mistake. Play through it, on to the next play, right? No matter what the score is, just keep playing. And that's back to your point where everybody puts so much focus on scoring, right? But the game needs to be enjoyable for the kids, right? It's a lot of work, it's a lot of pressure, and they put in a lot of time, but it needs to be enjoyable. The other thing is, we're volunteer coaches. Like, I want it to be enjoyable. I don't want to have a bunch of people sitting around miserable in the hotel lobby at night. That's really no fun for anybody.
I'm super passionate about this episode, probably more so than any I've done, because I have such a heart for the recruitment education piece, because there's no handbook. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of bad information, and just helping people understand. And like, when you say this stuff, when you say it to parents, it's not BS. The first kid I called you about on your team, a young kid I saw, she didn't play that great. She had maybe 4 points or something, but I mean, it was like 8 a.m. and she's diving out of bounds, like cracking her head against the chairs, dying, laughing, getting up, just sprinting her butt back. And she flew all over the place, had an unbelievable spirit about her. And you could just tell, you could tell the way she moved, carried herself and picked up her teammates. She didn't have her best game. but it didn't matter to me. I mean, I could tell that, what that kid was about and the juice she brought to it. And when you say, when I call you and you say, great character, great family, that was enough. We started recruiting the kid. And so I hope parents hear those kind of things and hear those stories and understand it's not about scoring. It's not about one phase of this deal. And there's a lot of ways to do it. And so that stuff's important. And I just kind of piggybacking off that, what is something that, aside from getting better, like obviously you got to work at your game, but aside from that, what's something that can help people help themselves get recruited or in this process? Or what's something on the flip side that they can do to hurt themselves?
The biggest thing they can do that hurts themselves on the recruitment trail is not play hard and worry about scoring, because kids that don't want to play hard, right, and as soon as they're not scoring it, things get worse. So there's a lot of kids, especially when you get them on the 15s, they think that you're going to be recruited based on your scoring. And I remind them all the time, on the EYBL circuit, it's just the opposite. The college coaches already know that you're not going to be on the team, right, at Missouri Phenom on the 15 EYBL if you can't score. They already know that.
Right.
So you're going to get recruited off all of the little intangible stuff that really doesn't show up in a stat book, right, or on the points. It's the number one, who's willing to take a charge, right? Who's going to take a charge in a travel game? You want to turn a college. There's lots of really good players out there. Like, if you want to turn heads to a college coach, stick your nose in there and take a charge or die for a loose ball. You'll separate yourself. You will separate yourself immediately. I tell them all in the off season, if you want to differentiate yourself to college coaches, you need to get bigger, faster, stronger. And that happens in the weight room. And especially with young kids, you want to separate yourself really quick. What can you do to help our team win when you're not scoring it well or having an off night shooting? All the little, can you get a rebound and a putback? Can you jump the passing lane, get a steal? Can you get a deflection, right? If we run a little token 3-quarter court 1-2-2, can you get a tip, right, that results in a 3-on-1? Those are all separators to me.
Yeah, for sure. That's sound advice, and I hope people are listening. This next question it's important and it's tough, and I asked you to come on because you're a no BS guy, and that's what people need to hear. So at the end of the year, and as people are getting teams lined out, are there conversations that are had for players? And I think especially people who are going from 15 to 16 or 16U to 17U, as they're in those positions, and they may be guy number 9, 10, 11 on say the 16 or 17U EYBL team, but they also have a chance to go maybe to an EYCL team or a next level team where they can kind of be the guy, showcase a little more, and get in front of coaches that maybe are more their recruitable level. Is that something where you'll lay those options out in front of those players and have those conversations, or are you going to put them on a team and maybe you feel like as a program, hey, if XYZ guy gets hurt, we'll need them there, and they'll what does that piece look like? Because I think the portal is full of players who, and don't get me wrong, it is not just the players, because all these coaches that make all these promises and tell them all these things, the portal's a great accountability tool for a lot of these coaches too. Right. So the portal's not full of there's plenty of ding dong coaches that are getting what they deserve too. But, I think that's where a lot of this happens is, I think wrong fit is the biggest problem. But I think tying into that goes into, somebody wants something maybe that's not, like the right place, right time. You talked about right court, right. Well, this goes into the right team. What does that look like for you guys?
That's really good. It's also really hard because the jump from 15 to 16 EYBL is big. The jump from 16 to 17 EYBL will probably be the biggest jump that a kid takes and makes. If they take the jump from the 16 to the 17 EYBL and they make it, they're pretty much going to be ready to play in college when they get there. If they make our 17 EYBL team, if you make that team, you're college ready. The jump to 15, 16 is hard. 16 to 17 is even harder, and it's very difficult. We do have those conversations. They're also very hard conversations because no one wants to play on the EYBL one year and play on the EYC team the next. That's just reality. Right. We lose a ton of those kids because they want to be on everybody else's number one team. So they would rather if they don't make EYBL, we lose a lot of kids that go play for other teams on other circuits, even though those teams aren't as good as our EYC teams. If you saw our EYC team last year, I mean, our 15 EYC team went undefeated. Our 17 EYBL team went 500 and had some great wins against some of the top ranked teams. But it's a very difficult conversation. Believe it or not, it's typically the parent that has the harder time swallowing the pill going from EYBL to EYC. But if you can sit them all down, and the option is, do you want to be the third point guard and play 8 minutes a game? It's hard to evaluate a kid plays 8 minutes. You know they're on a really good team and they know how to win. Or do you want to go play 23 minutes a game on our EYC team, playing against really, really good competition, get the ball in your hands, get some shots, have a chance to make some plays, right, and do some stuff and actually showcase what you can do. So I'm personally more about finding the fit and putting the kid on the team they need to be on.
Right.
My third year with Phenom, my oldest daughter was junior. It was her last year, and she played in the hub. EYC wasn't available back then, and my own daughter played for me in the hub. She did not play EYBL. It was not what was best for her.
Yeah, what a great example for people to hear that come from you.
She was a borderline guard. She was 5'8", 140, really good player. Ended up with some nice offers out of high school, some nice Division I, Division II offers. But she was not an EYBL player. So, like, she could have played EYBL, and she'd have been miserable all summer, or play in the hub, right, and play half the game, play 18, 20 minutes a game in a 40-minute running clock game, get the ball in her hands, get some shots, make some plays, have a little bit more of a leadership role, and it results in her getting some really nice offers. But it's not for everyone. You got to find the best fit. That's hard. Not everyone wants to hear that. Everyone wants to hear that you're EYBL. In reality, you need to be on the court where you can showcase what you can do to the college coaches.
Right. No, 100%. That's everybody needs to hear that. And speaking to parents, okay, I'm a firm believer. With the way it is now, people are sacrificing so much. They're sacrificing their time, their money, their vacations, all these things to do this for their players. There's a spotlight on women's basketball like never before, and it's so easy for a parent to get their identity tied into their and they love their kid more than anything in the world, and you don't fault them for that. But when they start tying their identity into their kid's performance and their kid's offers and things like that, and you start playing the comparison game, I think it's a dangerous place and an unfortunate place, like you said, for the kids, when they get there. What advice do you have for parents who have people, who have kids that are going to go through this? And it could be from, when they start in third grade until it's all said and done. What advice would you give these parents to help, hey, this is going to help you and this is going to help your kid, or this is really going to hurt you and this is going to hurt your kid?
Yeah, I tell them, you brought up a couple really good points that I say all the time. Comparison is the thief of joy. So don't compare everyone else on social media to yourself, because everybody's race is different. Kids develop at a different pace. Schools are looking for different positions based on year, right? Based on grad year. So you might think you want to go to these two schools and they're your top school, but they've already targeted two other kids in front of you in that class. So don't spend all your time on social media and worrying about who's getting an offer from what, because everybody's race is different and everybody develops at different paces. The other thing is, I tell every parent, this is going to be over. You're going to blink. You blink and this will be over. I tell everybody, just go to the game, put your feet up, enjoy it, get a Diet Coke and a popcorn, and that's easier said than done. But go, it's going to be over before you know it. Let me deal with all the worrisome stuff, right, that happens in a game. And yes, your kid's going to make mistakes. I'm going to make mistakes as the coach, right? So there's going to be mistakes made during the game by the players and the coaches. Just enjoy it, right? And remember the big picture. At the end of the year, everybody will have gotten what they wanted out of this, right? You will have played elite competition. You'll be a lot better than you were at the beginning of the year, and you're going to get to play in front of a bunch of really good college coaches. So that's kind of my parent meeting spiel at the beginning of the year to everybody.
No, that's good stuff, and I think pretty much for the most part they heed your words. I see some of the, when we're watching your teams, there's parents that they are just hammering on the popcorn and wringing their hands, but not saying much and just cheering their kid on. So
yeah, but I'll say this: we've been lucky. We've got incredible parents, right? And we're very selective about who we take. There are elite players out there that we pass on because they don't fit our culture. And if you watch the camaraderie on our teams, EYC, EYBL, we've got a really good group of kids and parents who are all kind of in it for the team. And especially on the EYBL, you have to convince kids, look, you're gonna have to make some sacrifices, right? There's 10 players and everybody's going to play about half the game on the 15s. So you're going to make some sacrifices. You just came out of high school and you played 30 of the 32 minutes. So you're not going to play 32 minutes a game. You're just not. There's too many players and we're trying to develop them all and we're trying to get them all some exposure. So everybody's going to make sacrifices. But the easiest thing is just handle it all up front. And it makes life way easier later.
Right. Yeah. No, you guys doing that, they probably don't even understand at this point how much that's preparing them for getting into college. Your freshman year of college, I mean, you've been, if you're playing at a really good school, if you're playing at the right Division I school, they've got great players and they probably got plenty of them. And so you're gonna, you might be used to a big role from a shot and minute standpoint. And, heck, we had Miss Kentucky basketball coming off the bench, as a freshman. And, but she was ready for that. She was built for that through her parents and through who she was and who her character, like she had enough character that could carry her talent, that she could handle that, keep growing, keep working. And she's had an unbelievable start to the season, but she had to be ready for that. And it wasn't going to happen the day you got there. So I think that's really, really cool. What do you think is the biggest misconception about playing on the circuit?
I think the biggest misconception about any circuit is that the circuit will get you the offer.
Right.
That's just not true. It's not. I mean, it's like there are lots of good players. I'll use the state of Missouri. There are a lot of really good players in the state of Missouri that don't play on one of the shoe circuits. Right. And they still end up going to really, really good schools. I think the benefit of the EYBL circuit is the depth. I think the top end of every circuit is good. I think it's really good. The top end of every circuit is good. I think the flaw in some of the circuits is that the bottom 2/3 is not as good as the top third. I think the benefit of the EYBL circuit is it's just deeper. But I think the biggest misconception is I'm going to go play on whatever circuit. I'm going to go play on EYBL circuit, right? And all I have to do is warm up, and I'm going to get a scholarship. That's just not the case, right? You still have to physically go play the game and perform, right, and impress the college coaches. And while you're out there, you have to do something that's going to catch the college coaches' attention, whatever that is, right? If they're looking for a shooter in the 26th class, like you better make some shots, right? Or they're moving on to somebody else. So, but the big misconception is I play for team blah, 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 so I'm getting a scholarship. Well,
Yep.
You get a scholarship, but you're never going to play, right? There's a difference between going somewhere where you're going to play and being number 13, 14, or 15, right? That's just going to get a scholarship. So to me,
Right.
that's the biggest fallacy about playing on a circuit.
Yeah, I think for sure that's a sentiment that's been echoed and agree wholeheartedly. As a parent who has had a daughter come up through this deal, as you look back, what do you think that you did a really good job of that prepared her from a basketball standpoint? What are the things that she was coming up, you worked on and you focused on that really helped prepare her for what she was able to go on to do? And if you could go back, what are some things you would do differently?
Well, the one thing that I thought we did a great job of, and we always do, is we spend a lot of time on skill development, ball handling under pressure, shooting, feeding the post, making the right pass, making the right read. And we spent a lot of time on one-on-one moves and Euro steps and right shoulder faders and just the things that we still continue to do today. We spend a lot of time on fundamentals and teaching kids how to play basketball. I think that's one of the things we do best. One of the things that I did not do well, that I did not do great, was I'm pretty competitive. And I probably worried too much about winning when they were young. I now know that, yes, winning is important and coaches want winners. But if I could go back, I would, when Addie was young, I wouldn't have pressed. I wouldn't have pressed. I would have played very little zone, and I would have ran a lot less set plays. But being ultra competitive, I knew that if I ran some set plays, nobody could guard them. And if I pressed and changed defenses, like no one at the 5th grade level would ever figure that out. So we won pretty much every game we played. If I had to go back, I would do less of that gimmicky stuff, and I would spend more time playing man, half court man, and running less set plays and just run more pick and roll stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's, that could be a great opener for the show, because I think that's huge. I think that's a message that probably needs to get sent out there, for people who are working with young folks, and especially as parents who have got young kids coming up. I know I appreciate that advice.
We're competitive, right? We're competitive and we want to win, right? Because winning feels good to everybody. What I've learned is if you just kind of play the right way, winning takes care of itself. It also helps to have a bunch of really good players like we had last year. You don't win Nike Nationals without a bunch of good players.
No, you do not. No, right. But when you got good ones and they play hard and they're having fun, you're going to mess around and be pretty good.
That helps a ton.
I'm interested in, as a college coach on this side of it, and I know, parents and players definitely should be. How much do you talk about fit with players who are being recruited? Because, going back to the portal piece, I just think there's so much of that where you've got a player who, maybe they're an unbelievable ball handler and they're a downhill guy and they're great in open space defensively and can rotate and fly around, but maybe they're not, they're not great at motion reads, and they're not great off the ball, and they're not a great shooter, half court defender. I see players like that end up at somewhere where a team runs half court motion and play pack line or zone, and that kid is not having success, and it's not a surprise. I think some of it's on the college coaches to not recruit someone who absolutely doesn't fit. But are there conversations like that go on your guys' side that, try to help, those players understand that?
Every day. I get lots of calls and lots of texts from college coaches. After doing this for 10 years, I kind of know how everyone plays, right? Including you guys, right? So we know what kids that we have that can, number one, play at your level and help you. And number two, who fit your system, right? So you really have to find out what skill set fits. And I've, after doing this for 10 years, I've feel like I've really learned that if a kid gives me their list, right, I can usually cross a couple right off the bat, right, because they don't play the style that you play, right? So, yes, We talk to every kid about fit because we're trying to keep kids out of the transfer portal, and we're trying to send kids to schools like yours who can come in and help you the day they walk in.
Right. And that's important. I think that's a big part of the responsibility of the programs too. And the people who they trust and they're putting their time, their trust, their money, into, I think that's important to help them succeed. And like you said, stay out of the portal. And that's we tell our kids in recruiting, that's one of our biggest goals is to, as a program, is to have the least amount of kids in the portal of anybody. And that's,
if you look at our track record the last 5 years since the portal, we've got very few kids in the portal. Very few.
Yeah, that's everybody's going to talk, and you can say anything you want, but therein lies the proof and where you can see that and tell that. And again, when you're talking about culture, every college in the country nobody's going to call you and say, man, we really treat our kids like crap. We're going to lie to you in recruiting. But the portal tells more of a story than a lot of people may want to admit, and they may hate me for that, but that's okay.
I think the other thing is that we do a great job of is we don't spin any information when the college coach tells us. So if the college coach asks us about a kid and we tell them, or we call the college coach and say, hey, I got a kid that wants you to come take a look at him, and you ask, can they do this or this or this, right? Or if you're not interested, we're not going to go back to a kid and say, yeah, they want to keep watching you the rest of the summer when they've already signed a kid in that class or got a kid committed, right?
Right.
It just saves time for everybody. It saves time for the kid. It saves time for the family. And it saves time for the college coach. No different than if you call me and ask me about a kid and I say, hey, look, she's not going to go very far from home, right? She's probably not going to drive 6 hours to college. She's going to try to stay within a couple. So it saves everybody a lot of time and money if you don't spin the information back and forth because we're kind of the mediators between the player, the family, and the college coach. So I think there's an importance in not spinning any of the information and just relaying the information clean.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Please.
That's common. That is not common. I know
it's not.
Other clubs that just spin information when they get it from the college coach to keep a kid hanging on, right? When the college coach doesn't have a lot of interest in that kid.
Right. And vice versa. They know full well that kid ain't going nowhere. And they'll, or, a younger kid, Power 4 doesn't matter to them at all. They want the right fit. Bull crap. They done told you what they want. They just want a jump start offer. So there's too much of that. Last question, and then I'll let you get back to it. If you could change one thing about travel basketball, what would it be?
That's easy. It's the cost. It's exorbitant. I mean, it's going to change, and it's coming to an end here pretty quickly. But the days of charging $1,000 for a tournament and $400 a night for a room is the end is near. It's unsustainable, and it's great. It's great that these big events can happen, but families just can't pay $50 to get in, $30 for parking, $40 to valet your car, $1,000 entry fee to a tournament. It's just unsustainable. That's my opinion. That, to me, that's the biggest weakness in the whole system right now, is that, these entities have gotten a taste of how much money you can make, and it just doesn't stop, right? I think it's coming soon, and I think it's imminent, and I think the end is near.
Yeah,
because
you hit up.
Charge college coach $1,000 for a book to get in and gouge the coaches on the end is near. It is near. It started about 5 years ago, and there's enough momentum right now with a lot of the powerful clubs that the days of just charging whatever you want and getting it are coming to an end.
Yeah, I always say pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered.
Right.
And that's, they saw an opening, and I mean, they ripped it wide open. So it's glad to hear from your end. You guys feel that, and you guys are proponents of that for everybody else, because $500 for a book that you can charge a Division III school $100 for, it's kind of,
right.
Same book, same ink, same paper, but they just know we will pay it. So
to me, that's the big, there's so many great things going on right now with travel basketball, especially on the girls' side, the notoriety, the publicity, it's hot right now, and there's a big surge, but the cost is exorbitant, and it's really unfair to the families.
No doubt. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking some time on a day off here to hop on and spend some time with me. It means a lot, and just excited to see what you guys keep doing. You guys keep pumping out great players, great people, so keep it up, man. You
guys are off to a great start, man. Looking forward to following you all year. And if you need anything, call me. Appreciate you having me.
Always. All right. See you, brother.
Talk soon. See you.
All right. At the buzzer with our final thoughts. I hope in today's episode you picked up a lot of things that you can use or you can help share with others who are going alongside this journey with you. Again, I want to make sure everybody knows if you have any questions when it comes to these things and you don't know where to turn, I'd love to help. My email is wyattfaust@gmail.com. You can hit me up anytime. Make sure and tune in next Tuesday as we have the head coach of Purdue women's basketball, Katie Gerald's on. Until then, keep adding to your playbook.